What is the dumbest reason you have ever gotten in trouble at school? This wasn't me, but friend of mine in middle school popped open a bag of Doritos in the cafeteria and a teacher said it sounded like a gunshot. He was suspended for a week. Coughing. I was getting over pneumonia at the time and was sent to the office for causing a distraction. If you're reading this, Mrs. Greb, duck you. Not one single child liked you. I dodged a punch someone threw at me. They hit concrete and broke their wrist badly. I nearly got suspended and expelled. The other guy did it to impress this girl. The girl didn't like my face. In all honesty, I have a pretty unlikable face. Got sucker punched and suspended for fighting. I never punched back. I had a substitute teacher in Spanish. We had a test that day. Our teacher left a note for the sub saying we could play games and it when we were done with the test. So I finished the test, pull out my computer, and start playing some dumb app I can't remember. Everyone else is also playing games and surfing the web. The teacher goes up to me, ducking slams my computer lid down on my hand, screams at me to get off my computer, and walks away, ignoring everyone else doing the same. Then she stops and says, "Wait, are you guys allowed to play games?" Everyone says yes, and she looks at me with a so-it look in her eye. Middle of winter. I put my coat under my desk before class started. Teacher insists that the coat I'm not even wearing is out of dress code despite it being one of the school approved colors. He demands I give him my coat until the end of the day. I tell him no because I don't think he'll actually give it back, plus I have to walk outside to get to other classes. He sends me to the principal's office. I tell the secretary what happened. She rolls her eyes and writes me a pass back to class. Someone threw one of those big mistake erasers at me, hit me in the face. I exclaimed pain and got yelled at by the teacher. She never liked me though. I opened my binder and it made a loud slap noise. My substitute teacher got in my face screaming that I was distracting her class and made me sit outside. Middle school was tough. In 5th grade the teacher kept calling on me to read out loud because I was the fastest in the class. I hated being the center of attention in any way. I was really shy at that point and most of the other kids made fun of me at one point or another. Another kid would read a couple sentences. She would call me to read a paragraph. She was trying to get through a whole chapter of a textbook or something. And eventually I just said no. She sent me to the office. They told me to just hang out there until the classes switched. We were learning about ancient China and had been watching a documentary on the Chinese emperors. The documentary got to a scene with the terracotta warriors and my teacher asked the class if we knew what they were. I said yes. They're the terracotta warriors and my teacher yelled at me, telling me how I had ruined the film for my class. Not a fun time. I got suspended for looking at poolstar.com, concert tour website. Librarian was absolutely convinced, even after I showed her, that I was looking at pornstar.com. 1 week in a school suspension, which I loved because I could just sleep all day. I was drawing Jesus in grade 1, and made his hands and feet huge so I could fit all his fingers and toes in. Mrs. Brueggemann sent me to the office, I think because she thought I was making fun of Jesus or something. She was rich and I hated her. Probably had something to do with that. So you know how on computers you can inspect the element and change the look of websites but it only shows on your computer. I did this on an educational game and bragged that I was better than everyone. Got written up and sent to the office for hacking. Had a bad allergic reaction to the wooden pencils. Asked to go to the nurse. Got yelled at in front of the entire class for not having the allergy declared to the school. I do. It's listed as nature allergies. She says if I was actually allergic then pencils would be banned from the school. Meanwhile I'm sitting there with a swollen throat and beet red eyes. Having recently watched Madagascar, wondered what was crackalackin with my principal. My principal was even chill about it. It was my ugly 4th grade teacher who got mad. I didn't want to be friends with another kid. One time I logged into the school's library computer to check out a book after hours. I was a library volunteer. I didn't do anything but check the book out with the library system. They called me to the office the next day and suspended my computer privileges for 3 months. Word traveled quickly. Yes. Teachers actually asked about it. teachers I didn't even have, and my least favorite teacher decided to assign a big computer-based project that we would work on in class for several weeks. Duck middle school. I got in school suspended for saying I took a poop in grade 2. I asked to go to the bathroom. I went to the dang bathroom. Teach got on my case for taking a long time and kept asking what I was doing in the bathroom. I kept saying I was going to the bathroom. I finally did what any annoyed kid would do and said I took a poop. Well, that was a boring day the next day. I was in charge of our class display board, so I drew one boy and one girl flanking the board. Just 2 kids standing a meter apart, fully clothed in a school uniform, not even looking or gesturing at each other. I was accused of encouraging improper heterosexual relationships among students and ordered to take it down. I said I was Romanian. I am. On my mother's side, she's white. My bio dad is black. Got into a huge argument with a teacher over it. He said that I couldn't possibly be Romanian and to stop lying. My kids have the same problem. 5th grade teacher made fun of me in front of the class for being a drama queen. Yelled at me when I ran out of the room crying, and then tried to give me a detention. I was being a drama queen because the teacher had actively prevented me from managing a blood sugar condition. My blood sugar had crashed, and I was no longer capable of calmly asking to call my mom. So at my elementary school, they would always write the homework due the next day on the chalkboard and it would be left there the whole day. I was someone who usually finished class activities pretty quickly, so I would always start the homework whenever I had finished class walk early and had nothing else to do. And anytime I was caught, I'd get yelled at for it. One time I was threatened with detention for it. I still don't get it to this day. I never did the homework while the teacher was talking. I never copied someone else's homework. I wasn't disturbing the class in any way. What was the issue? Kindergarten. Teacher told us some project we were going to do. Then she said, "Doesn't that sound like fun?" I shook my head no. She made me sit at the desk where anyone in trouble had to sit. It was the first time I ever got in trouble at school. I said, hell, as an adult, I think it's really ducking stupid. Dumb cunt of a teacher. A classmate would not stop talking at me during class and it was really annoying because I was trying to learn. And I got a detention for telling her to stop talking to me. At lunch, a kid threw food and garbage all over me. Instead of him getting in trouble, a police officer got me. He yelled at me some and I told him another kid threw it at me. He said yeah right and gave me a referral. That kid is in one of my classes and guess what? He didn't get a referral. WTF. Was playing tennis. Served the ball. Ball hit opponent in the knee lightly after bouncing. Him. Screaming in pain my eye. Me. It hit your leg. Coach. Go run laps for the rest of day. I'll always remember that ducker tone. I tried to teach myself to code. Got accused of computer hacking. I froze up when they asked me what I did. Just kept saying I didn't know. Got suspended for 5 days. They wiped the internet blocks after for some unknown reason so the whole school thought I actually did hack in and unblock YouTube and the like. 7th grade was weird. 5th grade I got thrown out of reading class. For reading. My parents were university professors and we didn't have a TV. But we did go to the library at least once a week. By 5th grade I could zip through an entire week's reading assignment in about 3 or 4 minutes. So one day the teacher gave us an assignment out of the stupid little reader. I read that sucker in no time flat and then went back to my novel. I was heavily into John Le Carre Registered Sign and Robert Ludlum at the time. So probably one of those. The teacher had an absolute meltdown that I wasn't reading the assignment and couldn't believe that I'd already finished it despite the 600 odd page novel I was actually reading. She threw me out of class after berating me in front of everyone. And that's the moment that cemented in my mind that school was complete bullet. Okay, so I was 8 and we had all been told off and told to work in silence. Then, the girl in front of me steals my rubber. I shout out jive that back and get my first ever red card. The teacher would not listen to the fact that I was a victim of a very serious crime. I was fuming. 21 years later and, as you can see, I'm still traumatized. Wasn't me. but I vividly remember when a friend got in trouble after saying literally a present during roll call. Everyone said one after another and he said a present and was promptly kicked out of class for being a smartass. I think that teacher was having a bad day. I was a goth girl in high school, and Columbine happened at the end of my senior year. There was about 5 weeks of school left at that point. I had worn dog collars or dog choke chains daily for 3 years. And then all of a sudden the school cracked down hard on us weirdos outcasts. I was told to not wear the collars or choke chains anymore. But I thought, duck this, and wore them anyway. I was told several times to stop and threatened with detention or a suspension, but I had a hardcore case of senioritis and I didn't give a duck. I was a good student otherwise and I had a hunch they wouldn't follow through, so I called their bluff. I was correct and they eventually left me alone. There was a strict no talking rule for an important quiz. Somebody came up to me briefly to ask me a relevant question. They were slightly late, about the assigned seats. I whispered a short response. I got detention. Late 90s, wearing a Dice sorta punk rock t-shirt that said "Bite Me." Teacher gets all riled up about it and tells me to go home and come back with something more appropriate. Go home. Came back wearing a plain white shirt with the words "not offensive" written across it in Sharpie. Ugh. The cringe. In 3rd grade, my hand cramped while I was writing. Very acute. Very painful. Never felt anything quite like it before or since. I let loose a quick yelp of pain. Well, the teacher then broke away from talking to yell at me in front of the whole class and take away my recess. She came around after class when I explained that my hand had suddenly hurt. But who punishes a child for what was obviously an involuntary response? Frick that school and that teacher in particular for that and a variety of other reasons, man. TLDR, almost lost recess due to a hand cramp. French teacher insulted me by saying you played the piano well, but I think the country singer was better and should have won the talent show, not you. Later in the week we had to write a page on why we enjoyed her class. I wrote out how much I loved being able to chat with friends because our hearing and eyesight were so bad. She couldn't tell anything was going on half the time. She gave me a few days of detention and was ultimately instructed to apologize to her by the school's disciplinarian. When I didn't express the reasoning behind my rant, pissed off that I was insulted in front of the entire class, she wanted to hug it out. No thanks. I posted this on a similar thread a couple of months ago, but I'll copy paste it here. In middle school, we were doing a unit on the digestive tract. The science teacher wanted each student to decorate a wooden spoon, which he would put into cup and use for random call. Most students drew the digestive tract on the handle, and made the head of the spoon into a smiley face. I followed suit, only I drew a frown. I figured it was a little strange to draw a happy face on a spoon with all its organs showing. I was later called into the office. As a generally well-behaved student, I couldn't figure out what I could have possibly done wrong. The receptionist told me the new principal just wanted to get to know the students. So I entered the principal's room and she asks me about my summer, etc. So far it seemed as though she really was simply interested in getting to know me. Then she pulls out my spoon from science class. She wants me to explain why it has a frowny face. As it turns out, the science teacher thought this was a definitive sign that I was depressed and suicidal. I assured her that this was not the case, and I went back to class. When I told my parents about it, they laughed at what a ridiculous overreaction the whole thing was. For dancing in my seat, all that I did was stretch. To be fair, the teacher was strict and had the best roaster that year. If you wanna dance, dance your way over to that desk and grab a detention slip and fill it out. I said freaking one time when I was in kindergarten, and the teacher called my mom and said that I was swearing in class. Being sent to the vice principal for refusing to roller skate. The skates were the old-fashioned metal kind that you slipped on your tennis shoes. The ball bearings came out at one wheel and the skate didn't work. She was furious. The teacher's reputation preceded her and the vice principal just had me sit outside his office until the class ended. I had a speech impediment and tried to imitate Bugs Bunny when he said "oh shucks." I found out later Teach thought I said "that sucks." I ran away from her when she said I was in trouble because I had no clue what I did wrong. Eventually she caught me and gave me recess detention for a week. I was in kindergarten. Also, I got in school suspension in middle school for not having my shirt tucked in 3 times. The boys' bathroom has one of those L-shaped privacy dividers when you open the door so can't just look straight in. I stood on top of that at the corner and peed into the urinal. It was a large tub-lengthed one. Well, a teacher walked in on me Batmaning as I called it, and I couldn't necessarily stop mid-flow. He just laughed and said, "You know I have to report this, right?" Played saxophone in 8th grade. Taking apart a saxophone is a pain in the ass and takes forever. Along with that, I was trying to talk to my then GF who had classes on a different floor. When I get to my next class, the bell rings as soon as I and some other kids walk through the door. However, this teacher decided she'd start taking roll before the bell rung. Since my last name starts with a C, I was close to the top. MR. Capital C. If you're late one more time I'm gonna give you detention. I was the only one that got yelled because none of the other kids' names had been called. MRS. Thornton. You're rich. We were doing breathing exercises in band and after we were finished I had to yawn. Director looks at me with angry face. "So you think you're a comedian, eh?" Sends me to the principal's office. Writing my notes in my journal too small. Apparently if the teacher can't read it I must not actually be doing any work. Also got in trouble for talking too loud in an above grade level math class. I had just gotten transferred in and didn't know anyone, therefore I had no one to talk to. Drawing on worksheet equals loud noises. 2 kids in my class were fighting each other outside, so I thought it would be a good idea to step in. Unfortunately for me, I didn't really say anything before I got between them and got a clean punch to the jaw. They both stopped and asked why I stepped in and if I was okay. But a teacher saw us and thought that since I got punched I was the perp. So I get sent to the principal's office and explain what happened. She tells me she believes me but that the teacher outside thought I was the one starting the fight. Some other kid in my class was recording. Standard behavior from him, I assure you, and sent me the video so I could prove I was innocent. All's well that ends well. But that's the last time I step in between people fighting in the public school system. I went to a Catholic school. My tights were too blue. Blue was okay per the handbook, but I got a lunch detention for wearing the wrong shade. I had horrible anxiety as a kid and frequently missed school because of it. My principal knew this but suspended me for being late too many times. I was literally suspended for being scared to go to school. I sharpened a pencil. Don't get me wrong. This was in a class which I didn't really focus or dedicate myself and constantly got into trouble in anyway. However, the one day I decided to actually do the work I asked the teacher for a sharpener and she said she didn't have one but she'd go to her office and get one for me. In the time it took her to get one my friend offered me theirs so I sharpened my pencil with that. The teacher came back and told me to sit down to which I replied I'm sharpening my pencil though and she thought I was being rude and sent me out of the class. In high school, hotty-totty rich kid private school my parents made me go to, there was a very loosely enforced rule that you couldn't carry a beverage in the carpeted hallways in case you spill it, as it was a pain in the ass to clean it up. Technically it applied to everyone, teachers and students alike. However, nobody ever followed this rule. Well, one day, I was meandering my way merrily down the carpeted hall with my coffee cup in hand. Because duck the police, right? I'm looking down at my iPod not paying any attention. Suddenly, my reverie is interrupted by the familiar shrill yell of the French teacher nobody likes. "Hey, on too much Adderall. What are you doing with that? There are no drinks allowed in this hallway." I look up, ready to issue a whoops. Sorry, it won't happen again until I noticed a peculiar fact. She had a cup of coffee, the exact same cup of coffee that I had from the cafeteria. She also had in her hand. I wasn't normally disrespectful to teachers, but first of all, I wasn't even in her class, and the stupidity of the situation began to overcome me. I said. I put my iPod in my pocket, and with my one free hand, I gestured dramatically at her coffee. Her face turned beet red. "I see you're enjoying a coffee too on this fine day," I said. "Yes, but I'm a teacher," she stammered as she realized her embarrassingly fatal mistake. She trailed off as, I presume, she realized the rule didn't only apply to students, but also to teachers. I raised my eyebrows. took a sip of my coffee and continued on my merry way. She never yelled at me for anything again. A guy grabbed my notebook in the hallway and would not give it back as I chased him around for it and class had already started. He then ran into the boys' restroom with it and I slung open the door in frustration, about to go in and get my stolen belongings back. But I hesitated outside the door because I didn't want to risk getting in trouble for going in. So I just quickly closed it and decided I would go to the office and let them handle it. Unfortunately, as soon as I closed the door to do that, the intercom came on immediately with the principal calling me to the office. I got in trouble for the terrible offense of opening the boys' bathroom door. He had witnessed the whole scene on the hall cameras, but did not call the arsehole over the intercom. He sat and watched until I opened the door, and that was his problem. I tried explaining it, but he just said he didn't care. I had no business opening the boys' bathroom door. It was a small town school that worshipped football. The football players and cheerleaders got preferential treatment. The taunting, disruptive, troublemaking notebook stealer was a football player. In elementary school PE class, our gym teacher brought out the parachute. She told everyone to grab a piece of the edge and stand in a big circle around it, but nobody go under it or stand on top of it. Then she plopped a folded up parachute in the middle of the gym and walked away. Then the whole class of 25-30 kids bum rushed the giant parachute and started dragging it about, trapping like 10 of us under it trying to find an edge. Next thing we know, the teacher started yelling and made the 10 of us sit on the bleachers and watch for the entire ducking class. On ducking parachute day of all days. There was also that time in the computer lab that my friend realized the slice of ham on his sandwich was roughly the same size as a CD tray on the computer. Probably a week went by before anyone had any reason to open the disk drive, but the computers were assigned so it wasn't difficult to trace it back to us. All we got was a stern talking to by the principal and a warning about vandalizing school property. Asking a friend for a pencil. After lunch every day, 2 people in my year level were assigned to go around, collect all of the outdoor bins, and lock them away in the bin enclosure. Well, my friend thought it would be funny to lock me inside as I was putting the last bin away and go back to class. They tried to come back almost right away, but the teacher wouldn't let them. I was found by the teacher an hour later when school let out, and she let me out and told me I had detention for skipping class. Fun. I rented out my locker to another student who was very disorganized. I was called into the dean's office and was told I wasn't allowed to sublet my locker. He called my parents, who were very proud of my resourcefulness, and had to pay the other student back.